Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey guys, just wanted to offer you a free gift here as a part of being a listener of my show. If you go to kfmfree.com, you can get the top 30 books and top 30 success quotes that every man must live by. So obviously every show we talk about books and we talk about success quotes. And so I've compiled the best of the best out of the last 100 episodes into a short guide. So kfmfree.com and it's all yours. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Geoffrey Miller. He's a world-famous evolutionary psychologist, popular science author, and researcher. His first book was The Mating Mind, How Sexual Choice Shaped the Evolution of Human Nature. He holds a PhD from Stanford University and has more than 100 academic publications and has given over 160 talks in 12 different countries. All right, Geoffrey Miller, happy to have you here on the show.
Yeah, great to be here, Andrew.
All right, let's dive in, Jeff, with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that you've lived by that's helped you on your journey.
One of my favorites that I often use in classes where I'm teaching about individual differences like intelligence or personality is actually from psychologist William James from more than a century ago. And he said, there's very little difference between one man and another, but what little there is very important. And I think that highlights that, we all share a common human nature, but there are differences between guys in a lot of the traits that really matter in life, that matter to women, that matter to success. And it's really just capitalizing on those minor differences and sort of building them over time and sort of taking advantage almost of the compound interest on them that you get from success that makes all the difference in the long run.
I like this. Let's take a look at how has this applied to you. What would you say were some of your slight differences that you had that you've cultivated and developed in your career?
I was always pretty smart, did well in school, but I was kind of introverted, wasn't great socially, and had passionate interests in a lot of pretty abstract ideas that other people found pretty obscure. And I think what I really tried to work on in my career was, number one, meeting really interesting people, hanging out with them, learning what they knew, and sort of integrating that into my career, my research, my writing. And then number two, really forcing myself to do the social stuff like teaching and giving conference talks that would kind of build my social skills and get me out of my little introverted box a little bit. And that took a long time to sort of build into confidence in terms of doing interviews like this or doing media, appearing on TV. But if you work on it, you can really make a difference in the long run. Yeah, really good. I just gave the intro of what you've done. And so cultivating that, it's like shows what's possible. So that's really good to see that. And so your new book, it's called Mate. You and Tucker Max wrote this book. Is that right? Together? Or yeah,
is it? It's
absolutely.
Together you guys wrote it. Okay, so it's Mate, Become the Man Women Want. It just came out. In one, like how did you guys kind of meet? Tucker Max coming from a prominent author, kind of very edgy, funny, a lot of humor, dark humor, and your background in the academics and kind of the evolutionary psychologist. And how did you guys meet? And then how did the book come to be? And then let's dive into the topics of the book.
We met a few years ago. I was visiting Austin, Texas for a psychology conference, and we somehow got in touch, maybe through a mutual friend, David Buss, who's another leading evolutionary psychologist.
Yeah.
And Tucker and I just arranged a dinner, sat down together, started chatting. Tucker had read both of my previous books, The Mating Mind and Spent, really liked them. I hadn't actually read his books. I did afterwards. But we got to talking about the state of young men in America, particularly in terms of mating and sex and dating and relating to women. And I mentioned I've taught human sexuality a lot at the college level. And a lot of the guys in my classes just seem pretty lost in terms of not understanding women, not understanding some basics about, how to talk or how to arrange dates or how sex works. And it turned out that a lot of guys were turning to Tucker's previous books, his memoirs, kind of for dating advice. Like, if I do this, then I'll get women like Tucker did. And they were sort of going out, getting drunk, falling down, shouting insults at people, and it wasn't working. And so we thought there's a real need for a good evidence-based advice book for young single guys. And it seemed like a natural fit to sort of combine my evolutionary psychology background with Tucker's ability to do humorous, straight-talking prose. And that's what I think we achieved that with this mate book.
Yeah. The book is out for the guys listening to this right now. So let's talk about what is the current state of young men in America in regards to dating and relating to women.
I think young men are getting very conflicting and confusing advice from lots of different sources. I mean, there's the traditional moralizing, right? How to treat women that comes down from religion and high school sex ed classes and parents and also now gender feminists, are getting into the mix and saying, this is how you should be as a guy and this is how you should treat women. And then there's the whole manosphere and the pickup artists, and there's a lot of great ideas and advice in that area, but a lot of it doesn't really seem to work that well for some guys, and a lot of it doesn't really have a good kind of theory or framework for understanding, like, why does this work? Why do women want particular traits or behaviors? And so that lack of insight and understanding means it's hard to even remember the advice. It's hard to apply it in any situation other than what somebody's told you to do directly. And it's also not clear that some of the advice is actually, effective and based on real evidence. A lot of the leaders in the pickup artist community and the manosphere are unusually articulate and charismatic guys, have a lot of energy, a lot of extroversion. And it's hard to kind of translate the stuff that they do that works into, the lives of ordinary guys who don't have those same things going for them. So we're really looking for advice that works for the average guy in high school, college, or early in his career.
So what are the, let's say, principles of mating success?
The first thing is understand what women want and what it's like to be a woman in terms of women's fears, anxieties, and concerns, their perspective on the whole dating game. And also why women want the things that they want, so that you don't end up kind of feeling, resentful, like, why do they want this stuff? I don't get it. I'm not willing to do it. It seems invalid to me. So a lot of the book is really about helping guys get inside the heads of women, not to be deceptive or manipulative or take advantage of women, but to kind of understand their legitimate point of view and the kinds of things they worry about. Like, they worry about their physical safety or sexual coercion or rape or, creeps and weirdos or being stalked. They worry about slut shaming and their sexual reputations. And a lot of guys just don't get that. If you sort of box them into a corner and say, do you think women care about rape? Guys will go, yeah, but they don't really think, how do I send signals that say I'm sexually safe, I won't take advantage of you when you're on a date? So that's the number one foundation, just understand women.
Okay, and then moving on from that in the different steps?
Yeah, the second step is really thinking about how do I find women whose mating goals fit with mine? We talk about being honest with yourself and with women about what your dating goals are, which often means, don't pretend you're looking for a wife or a long-term girlfriend if you're not. And also finding win-win relationships, which means a woman has a certain set of things she wants to achieve with any kind of interaction, whether it's a one-night stand, a hookup, or or a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, you have a certain set of things you want to achieve. You've got to find the women whose needs overlap with yours, instead of trying to, engage in some battle of the sexes, where you're trying to kind of talk them into letting you pursue your mating goals if they're not aligned with hers. So that's a fundamental thing. And we talk a lot about things like finding the right mating market, going to the right college for you where the women there will share your mating goals, or finding the right city where women tend to be on the same wavelength in terms of what they want. Like women in the San Francisco Bay Area are really different from women in Salt Lake City, Utah, in terms of their kind of sexual norms and expectations. And then a third step is cultivating the traits that are attractive to women. And that can go all the way from physical health to mental health, intelligence, willpower, and being what we call a tender defender, which is a guy who's got the right mix of agreeableness, but also assertiveness. And a lot of the book is about exactly what those traits mean, why they're attractive to women, and specifically how to cultivate them and build them step by step.
Got it. And what is it like when you're talking about some of these things, you're like owning your attractiveness? Let's talk about the topic of money and looks.
Sure.
And guys feel like I'm not good enough. She's too good looking for me. Like I'm short, or like I don't have these physical features. And then also like, oh, I'm still in college, I don't have money, or maybe I'm not making as much money as I'd like to be in my career, or I'm almost broke. It could actually be.
It could be a threat.
To them, or there's a sense of maybe a lack of trust in a long-term relationship.
Absolutely. And there was just a cool study published about a week ago, data on 60,000 people, analyzing, hey, how important is height and weight in terms of how many sexual partners a guy can attract. If you're way below average in height, it hurts you a little bit, but not that much. If you're way above average in weight or body mass index, it hurts you a little bit. But there's a huge middle ground where it just doesn't matter a whole lot. Women aren't paying nearly as much attention to height or fat or muscles as you think they are. And they're paying a lot more attention, particularly in finding a boyfriend, to your personality, your intelligence, how good a conversationalist you are, what's your sense of humor like, all that stuff that you can build even more easily than your physical attractiveness.
Yeah. And going into money.
Yeah. We've got a whole chapter on what we call material proof, which is about resources and money and how much do you really need and all of that. Here again, most women aren't that interested, particularly when they're young, in your assets and your income. What they really want are signs of ambition, that you have a passion in life, that you're going somewhere, there's something you care about, and that you've got the intelligence and the work ethic to actually make something of yourself. So it doesn't really matter, especially when you're young, that you're not rich. It just matters that you got something going on in your life. That's really what women are looking for.
Yeah. And I think that's often a crutch. So many men will enter entrepreneurship or building a business with the idea that, one day I'm going to be successful, or just in anything, whether it's even a corporate job, like I'm going to be successful. And then once I am successful, then I can go and get the girl that I want.
Yeah, you don't have to wait. I mean, if you're a young entrepreneur and you're just launching a business and you've just started to develop a product or some intellectual property, or at least you've identified your market and maybe you've got a partner, a couple of employees, that's plenty of evidence for most women to go, yeah, he's potentially a keeper. Stuff's going on. I actually did a study about 10 years ago asking women, would you rather be with a boyfriend who inherited a bunch of money but didn't really work to get it, or an entrepreneur who's launched a business and it was going okay, but then it failed for reasons beyond his control, and now he doesn't have much money? A lot of women would rather be with a failed entrepreneur who at least tried than with a rich guy who just didn't even make an effort to get the money.
Yeah. So what I'm getting is it's not so much about having these material possessions, but about having the characteristics and qualities that would show that the possibility of that you're capable of something greater in the future.
Exactly. And, bear in mind, money is a relatively new thing in evolutionary terms. Women and men evolved their mate preferences, what they're looking for in their sexual partners, in prehistory, back in caveman days, when everybody was a hunter-gatherer living in a tribal society. There was no money, there was no ownership of land, there was no inheritance, there was no venture capital. What women paid attention to was, does this guy get off his butt and actually go out hunting and make an effort, or does he just sit around and act lazy? That's what they're tuned into. And even the most successful hunters often come home empty-handed. So women kind of know that even if you're ambitious and you've got things going on, not all of your projects will succeed, and that's okay.
So what I'm getting is it's about survival, or it's kind of a survival mechanism, like deep-rooted inside of us. It's like women see a man who is going out hunting, could be he's going out, he's hustling, he's overcoming rejections, he's trying to make it happen for himself, versus someone else who's maybe stagnant or just complacent and just not really moving anywhere in life. I think survival, like who is she going to be successful with in survival in all of her life?
Absolutely, yeah. Who's going to protect her? Who's going to help care for any children that come along? What guy has a social network, friends and allies that can help the woman achieve her own goals in terms of her security and popularity, status and prestige and childcare and all that. So the guys who have all of those qualities, the good social network, the work ethic, the ambition, the skills, that's really what's primally attractive more than money itself.
Yeah. So let's say a guy does have this kind of these qualities, like the good qualities, the hustler, the being able to get it done, and being able to provide, but he's a nice guy. In your research, like what is it about the nice guy that is almost like detracting the woman or pushing the woman away?
Yeah, so the book No More Mr. Nice Guy is one that I recommend, and it's got a pretty good analysis of some of the evolutionary angles there. But I would add to it that, one thing women are looking for is what we call the tender defender, a guy who can defend her and her family and kids from external threats, whether they're wild animals, natural disasters, potential rapists, warfare, all of that stuff. She wants kind of a heroic guy who can be a good defender. But also, women respond to dominance, assertiveness, and confidence sexually. And if a nice guy hasn't tapped into his kind of primal capacity for sexual dominance, he's just not going to be that exciting to a woman in bed. And also, being a nice guy can code as being low status and submissive in terms of a guy's interaction with other men. And a woman doesn't necessarily want an alpha man and allies who respect him. So those three aspects of assertiveness are kind of the opposite of being the overly nice guy. You've got to be capable of defending the woman, capable of being sexually dominant in bed, and have the respect of other men.
Yeah. The respect of other men almost is a sign of social validation for her, that like she has made a good decision.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really strong form of what we call social proof.
Yeah. Okay. So that explains the nice guy here and responses here.
We started the mate book with a whole chapter on building self-confidence because at least in our Mating Grounds podcast, a lot of guys called in with confidence questions.
Yeah.
How do I get it? How do I build it? Why don't I have it? So confidence was our number one issue. Number two was how do I talk to women?
Yeah.
Conversational skills. What kind of responses did you get?
Oh, well, those are on point. I'm scrolling through this right now up and down, and I see confidence, I see communication, relating with women. But one that just comes up over and over again is just like literally there's 6 in a row, and it's approaching women. Like, how do I just go and approach the women? A lot of fears around rejection, a lot of feelings of anxiety, or they call it approach anxiety, where they're not able to take action. It's almost like they're frozen, as if Medusa has stoned them. I'm just reading what they're saying here.
Yeah.
And I find that really interesting. And I'd like to get your perspective on why is it that we could be a leader in our business. We could be a leader, in our jobs. We could be a leader with even our friends or in a sports team. But when it comes to an attractive woman, we get stuck. Why are we so scared of rejection? What is that anxiety that we feel when we see a woman and we're like, oh, I know I need to talk to her, but I'm unable to move. I can't think. Everything just stops.
Well, it's a really unnatural, evolutionarily weird thing for a strange man to approach a strange, unknown woman and sort of try to strike up a conversation. In prehistoric tribal societies, everybody knows everybody already. A man would know every local woman, either by reputation or through her family, or they've been living together for years. And so the only situation in prehistory when a man would be approaching a total stranger would be if she's in another clan, a different tribe. And that's hugely intimidating because she's going to have friends, lovers, relatives who might literally kill him for being outside his own clan's territory. So there's a huge amount of anxiety, not just in terms of how the woman's going to react, but all of her friends, companions, and relatives around her, how are they going to react? And it was literally a matter of life or death, how you manage those interactions with strangers. So when guys nowadays have approach anxiety about going up to a strange woman, that's not irrational. It's not weird. It's perfectly understandable in terms of the kind of history and prehistory of human mating. And this is why we recommend that guys, most guys, unless they're really confident and really extroverted, should probably not try to meet women in bars or clubs or other situations where it's just stranger on stranger. We recommend making your dating and mating life an extension of your social life. So join clubs, activities, mixed sex groups, sports teams, stuff like that, where you can interact with women first on a non-sexual basis and then kind of ask them out on a date once you get to know them socially. We think for most guys, that works a lot better.
Yeah. In that process, what I'm seeing from that is if you have your own social circle, then it's kind of like you're inviting them into your tribe.
Exactly.
And it's much different kind of, you're not at risk of really, you're not going to get rejected by her tribe. You're inviting her into your group of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing evidence now that women in prehistory tended to travel a lot farther in their lifetimes than men did. Women transferred from one clan to another, typically because, there was a guy there who attracted them. Now, think about it. If a prehistoric woman sees a guy, but he's got no clan, he's got no relatives, no friends, no allies, is he a good bet? Can he keep her safe? Can he feed her? Can he take care of their kids? No. If he's a lone male, he is not a good bet. She's not going to leave the safety of her group to go off with him. He's got to have the social proof that he's got friends and allies and family and supporters. And then she'll feel safe, like, okay, that's a viable boyfriend.
Yeah, that's often something I see is if I'm working with a guy, he's trying to get a girlfriend. His goal is to get a girlfriend, and it's all he's doing. And he's almost sacrificing a lot of his hobbies, a lot of these other things that he enjoyed doing, and he's just pursuing the woman and lacking a social life, lacking just building a social environment that would be welcoming for women to come into.
Yeah, and this is why Tucker and I put so much emphasis on social proof and keeping busy, finding activities you like, joining meetup groups in your city, joining sports teams, and just having an active social life going on that you can invite a woman into.
Yeah. And so with all this, it sounds simple, when we're kind of when we're writing this out or talking about it here. So you could know all this stuff. You could read your book, you could read a lot of the books out there, and still nothing can happen. Like I find that guys can get addicted to learning about attracting women versus actually going out and attracting women.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to become like a mating bookworm where you have all this book knowledge and you don't actually translate it into any program of action. And that's why the whole mate book is sort of centered around 5 specific steps that guys should take, that lead to mating success, rather than just a bunch of knowledge that they should absorb and that just sort of sits in their brains going nowhere. Yeah. I find that a guy could just completely ignore dating and relationships altogether and start just focus on other aspects of his life as almost like an excuse. It's like, oh, I'm focused on business right now. I'm focused on improving my health right now. And when he really does want to have a woman, it's like he'll use it as an excuse instead of actually going out and doing it in fear of rejection. Yeah, and that's a really lonely, frustrating way to live. And it's also kind of self-handicapping because honestly, a great girlfriend who's got a good head on her shoulders can be a huge help for everything else that a guy does in life. His social life, his business, getting in shape. A supportive girlfriend can be a huge advantage, and there's no reason to sort of handicap yourself by saying, oh, I'll do that in 5 or 10 years. Yeah, looking at some of like the greatest minds, some great leaders in the world like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Buffett, and you can look at a lot of these major figures even in history, like even Lincoln, and look at presidents and world leaders, and many of them had a strong woman by their side who supported them. Yeah, one of my favorite other success quotes is Winston Churchill when asked, what was the most difficult thing you ever accomplished? And this was after World War II. And Churchill said, persuading my wife to marry me was the hardest thing. After World War II, yeah, like getting Clementine to marry Winston was number one. Beating the Nazis, that was a kind of a distant second in terms of difficulty. Okay, so what would be a mating plan for a guy to take the knowledge, reading your book, reading other books? There's so much content, but I find like, if guys would just go out more and just put themselves out there and talk to more women, they would see more results. Like, it's not like something's wrong with guys. Go get some results and then maybe come back to some reading and work on those sticking points. But what would be a plan of action? Something that a guy listening right now could sit down and just start working on? Yeah, there's a lot in the mate book that's sort of full of exercises where you kind of sit down and make lists and think about exactly what am I going to do today, next week, next month, and next year in terms of building these traits, these proofs that are attractive to women. One distinctive thing that we emphasize is most young guys should probably think about moving, because a lot of guys grow up in a certain hometown, they happen to go to a particular college, and they find themselves in a situation where there aren't that many women who actually match what they want. We put a lot of emphasis, for example, on making sure you're in a place that's got an advantageous sex ratio, that's got more women than men. And most colleges nowadays are about 60 or even 65% women. So going to college for a lot of guys is a great way to improve your mating market compared to just working. But colleges differ a lot in exactly what their sex ratio is. Like University of Chicago is about 50-50, whereas Sarah Lawrence College is about 70% women. And the guys who realize that Sarah Lawrence College actually accepts male applicants have a very easy time dating in college. Conversely, if you move to Silicon Valley, San Jose, California, that's got a really tough sex ratio for guys. There's a lot more guys than women. And it's very, very difficult there to find girlfriends. And the women who are there have a lot of bargaining power. So often the first step to mating success for guys is finding the right mating market. And often that requires moving. Yeah, it's a big topic. And I'll talk to some guys and, be like, so how many girls you talked to in the last month or 90 days?
And they'd be like, 1. And oh, where do you live? And then it'll be this town that, I've never heard of, and I'll Google it, and population's like 25,000. And in those cases, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's just not much you can do. Like, you could read everything, you could hire the best coaches, but if you're in the wrong market, just like in business, I mean, you've got to change markets, and you got to go to a place where you're going to have a higher advantage. So it's a simple action step, but I think it's just a big change for a lot of guys. Like, oh, am I gonna do this just for women? Like, what about my family? What about my job and friends, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, guys have the delusion that they're getting their education and their career for reasons other than women. But in fact, a lot of the fundamental evolutionary reasons why guys get an education and try to achieve success and status and wealth is to attract women. So if you're willing to move for your education or your career, you should be willing to move for your mating success directly.
I like that. That's a big epiphany. That's good. That's really good. If you're willing to travel across the world and put yourself in 6 figures in debt, why not go someplace to find the right partner that you're going to spend the rest of your life with?
Exactly, yeah.
All right, so we've talked a lot about the mating grounds, the book here, and your podcast, and a lot of good topics here. I have a part of the show called the Knowledge Round, so I'm going to jump into that. So are you ready for the Knowledge Round?
Yes, I am.
All right.
All right, guys, if you're not reading books, then you're getting left behind. Somebody spent their entire life learning some invaluable lesson. And the best format that anyone could ever put it in is a book. It's the shortest, fastest, simplest way to consume content. So I know there are so many books available, and we talk about books all the time on the podcast. So there must be so many running through your head, and you're wondering, where do I begin? Well, I've compiled the top 30 books and success quotes from all of my guests in the last 100 episodes. So you can get them all for free. If you go to kfmfree.com, you can simply download the top 30 books that every man must live by. Again, that's kfmfree.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
How would you explain your new book to a newcomer? Let's say someone just picked it up at Barnes & Noble and he's looking at it. So how would you explain your book to him?
It's a book for young single guys about how to do better with women, sex, and dating, and it's based on scientific evidence, and it provides great insights that are really driven by research and the best ideas from psychology, anthropology, biology. So it's it's distinctive compared to other dating advice books because it's got this science edge, but it's also got this very blunt, straight talking, no bullshit kind of prose style that comes, mostly from Tucker, but also partly from me.
Got it. And what advice would you give to someone who's right now feeling absolutely lost with women and dating, and they're frustrated and they've almost just given up?
Don't blame yourself. The important thing is to realize society has failed you in terms of not giving you the information that you need to understand women, sex, and dating. So it's not your fault. You shouldn't feel ashamed, embarrassed. What you should do is say, it's okay, I've been handicapped by my upbringing, my schooling, my parents. None of them gave me what I need. It's okay to take a little time to read up on this, listen to good podcasts like this, and give yourself a break and realize that this is something you can learn about, and the more you learn, the better you'll do.
Yeah, I like that. And what would you say was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
I think I'd internalized a lot of the nice guy values from school and parents and feminism and the media. And I didn't really know how to tap into my kind of masculine energy in a way that was attractive to women, but also was responsible and not being a dick or a douchebag or a psychopath. So walking that line where you're assertive, but you're not aggressive, you're confident, but you're not narcissistic, it's hard to figure out how to do that. And frankly, there aren't a lot of good role models out there for guys.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
A lot of celebrities are kind of narcissistic douchebags. So there, a lot of politicians likewise.
There's a couple going around.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up a good point with not a lot of good male role models in the media. Like I think if we were to think of some of the most popular male role models growing up, I can think of like Homer Simpson, Al Bundy, and now like Peter Griffin from Family Guy. And these guys are like kind of portrayed as being kind of like dumb, like beer drinking, kind of just lazy type of men.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of man shaming in popular culture because you can make fun of straight guys in a way that you can't make fun of women or gay dudes or whatever. And a lot of the guys who succeed in really competitive careers, like professional athletes, they've really done nothing other than be athletes since age 10. And so they haven't really cultivated all of these mental and moral and social traits very much that we're advocating are the heart of attractiveness to a lot of women. So you see interviews with NBA or NFL players, and no doubt they're awesome at what they do, and we couldn't do it, but they're not very articulate, moral, responsible, mature role models for most young guys.
Yeah, they make a good point. Sometimes hear them talk on their like post-game kind of interviews, press conference, and the level that they're speaking at in some cases are just very like do you know what I mean? It's just a lower level. It's
very canned. Like,
right.
I want to thank my teammates and
right. Not much going on there.
Great coach.
Exactly. And it's like the same thing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What would you say, this is going to be a tough one for you. I know it is as an academic and all the books you've written, but what would you say are 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey and why?
Let's see. I've read like literally thousands of books, so it's pretty hard to pick one. One that I use in classes that I like a lot is by Harvard psychology professor Steven Pinker, and it's called The Blank Slate. And Pinker's Blank Slate is a lot about what human nature is and how it works and how to think about it, and the way that in modern society, a lot of the media and even a lot of my fellow academics have this kind of blank slate view that everything about men and women is kind of poured into us by society and education and the media. And it kind of denies that we have an intrinsic nature. So Pinker argues, no, we do have a human nature. It's important to understand. It's different for men versus women. So I'd recommend that. David Buss and co-author Cindy Meston have a great book that I've used in human sexuality classes I've taught called Why Women Have Sex. And Why Women Have Sex is all about women's sexual motivations, why they choose guys, but also it really helps sort of get inside the heads of women about their concerns, fears, ambitions, aspirations. So I'd recommend that as a second one.
Really good books, yeah. And do you have another?
Oh, gosh. Oh, yeah. Okay. There's one by Robert Frank, who's an economist at Cornell University, and it's called The Darwin Economy. And in The Darwin Economy, Robert Frank talks a lot about why we pursue money and luxury goods and consumerism. And he kind of breaks it down into its biological roots and basically argues, like I do, that when guys pursue wealth and status and prestige goods like sports cars and Rolexes, it's really largely about attracting women. And once you realize that, it kind of lifts some of the burden. It means, okay, I don't have to be a millionaire to be attractive. That's just one way among many to be attractive to women.
Got it. Yeah, really good books. I'll be checking some of those out, adding them to the wish list right now. Well, this next question is more of a scenario, and it's this. It's imagine, Jeff, that you have 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him to do, and what would you tell him not to do?
I'd say, look, little Geoffrey, don't study so hard. Work on your social skills, overcome your introversion, get more comfortable with people, work on your public speaking and your communication skills, which are going to be invaluable no matter what line of work you go into. And don't think that maximizing your grade point average is automatically going to lead to success in life or sex.
Right.
So it's just sort of shifting your priorities from doing the stuff that your parents or your professors want you to do to doing the stuff that actually is going to bring you fulfillment and happiness.
Yeah, really good. And so this next one, even if you have to summarize some of your main points or introduce some new ideas here, what would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
My philosophy on life generally is just really try to understand it and keep an open mind. Be tuned in to science and nonfiction. Fill your head with valuable, accurate information. Subscribe to good magazines, read good books, watch good documentaries. The better you understand the world, the more effectively you can act in it. So that's an important kind of intellectual value. And then there's this movement called effective altruism that's about how do I do good in the world for other people or animals or the environment in a way that's based on evidence and insight instead of sentiment and just fuzzy feelings. And I think a lot of guys are pretty good at, pursuing things that are good for them, but they don't have a broader mission or purpose outside themselves. And I think the effective altruism movement is really exciting for young guys to pursue because it helps them kind of put the focus outside their own lives into something that's bigger than themselves. And that's also very attractive to women.
Yeah. Do you, I believe David Dida, he says that men should put their purpose above the woman. And when they shift their purpose to the woman, that's when they lose the woman.
I think that's a pretty deep insight. Yeah, women want a guy who's got a bigger life than just the relationship with the woman. That doesn't mean that you never prioritize the woman. It just means that, you can't let trying to please the woman dictate everything you do in life. You've got to have a broader responsibility to not just to your career, but you have to think of your career as like, who am I serving? So for me, it's my students. Those are the folks I'm serving, or it's my peers in terms of publishing papers. Those are the folks I really want to influence and who I'm accountable to. And when women understand that those are my passions and my priorities, it immediately, provokes a lot of respect. And women will realize, okay, I might never be his number one priority, but I'd rather be his second priority, and a guy whose life has a big purpose than be the number one priority in a guy whose life is really only about himself.
Yeah, just letting that sink in. Really good stuff here. And this has been a really good episode going in. Well, what's, exciting you today, Jeff? What's going on? What's getting you out of bed in the morning now?
At the moment, it's mostly trying to get the message in the mate book out to guys, and also understanding the concerns of young men and making sure that this information is as useful and actionable as possible. I mean, we invested a lot of time and energy in running the Mating Grounds podcast for a whole year before the book came out so that we could better understand where young guys are at. But we still have a long ways to go in terms of understanding things like how do guys actually use dating apps or online dating effectively or ineffectively. And it breaks my heart sometimes seeing some of the profiles that guys have up in online dating. So really trying to help them with that is kind of a pet passion of mine at the moment.
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about with the profiles. Just like things they're saying, pictures they're posting, in the hopes of attracting women, and just doing this. But it's like, I think, like you said and alluded to and said many times, it's like it's not their fault. It's that this is what they believe society. This is what society has showed them through the media, that this is what women want.
Yeah.
Okay, another episode. I'll catch you on maybe the next book, Mating Online.
Yeah, cool.
Become the men women want online. All right, well, go ahead and give yourself a plug on how the audience can follow up with you, and obviously the book Mate. Just simply go to Amazon, type in Mate, and then type in Geoffrey Miller. It shows right up when you just type in Mate. I'm on it right now. But any websites that you'd like to share?
Yeah, the podcast is matinggrounds.com. We've got about 200 episodes that we've recorded. It's pretty popular. It's a mix of guys calling in with questions and Tucker Max and I answering them. And we've got interviews with experts. We've got sort of overviews of the contents of the book. And we've got a great series called Helping Joe, about 30 episodes where there's one particular young guy who Tucker has been kind of coaching and helping for the last 6 or 8 months, and that's kind of a fascinating series, a case study, as it were.
All right, Geoffrey, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your time, sharing some of your story and the lessons you've learned in this book, Mate, and on this podcast here with my community today.
My pleasure, Andrew.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and 1 million downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we've just started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a review in iTunes. It really helps to grow the podcast. Guys, 2015 is the official year of living with purpose, where every day you do only the things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. Check out kfmfree.com to get free tools I've created to help you crush life. Again, that's kfmfree.com. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, and I'll see you in the next episode.